right, everybody, we've got Patrick Macqueen back, my real estate go-to attorney. Patrick, thank you so much for showing up today.
It's always fun, Kelly. So I appreciate you having me.
So the topic today is kind of not a real fun one. And so I really appreciate you coming on though and sharing, because it's important. And so we're going to talk today a little bit about deed fraud. And it seems like it's one of those things that, really, I saw it on the news a couple of months ago, and I'm like, this is still happening, because this isn't a new thing, right? But I do think that when real estate markets go through heated cycles like we've just gone through and equity rises, the bad guys want to find ways to do bad stuff. And so deed fraud is one of those types of scenarios. So kind of walk us through what that means, how it works, how the bad guys are getting access, and then we'll kind of talk through some thoughts on how solutions if there are any.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much here, because I don't want any of the bad guys getting a hold of this video, but it's actually it's actually a very, very easy thing to do, quite frankly, is to forge a deed and to perhaps take somebody's property. What we're talking about here is simply recording a forged deed or signing a false deed. And, I've seen this for 20 years now. One of my very first cases that I ever dealt with as an attorney involves a forged deed. That's really what it is. Some people use the words title fraud. Some people use deed fraud. Whatever it is, it's basically a forged deed where somebody as a grantor pretends to be somebody else and conveys a piece of property to an unsuspecting third party, or they convey it to themselves and then get some financing on the property, keep the cash, kind of a thing. And all while you're just sitting there not knowing what's going on. And so deed forgeries have been around a very long time. Sometimes it's an insider who may know how to sign their mom's signature, or it's an insider who is a notary, but they got their notary license for the wrong reason. Sometimes it's these criminal rings who come up with really accurate looking fake IDs that sort of look, they show their picture, but it's got your name on it. And so nobody is any wiser as to what's going on. So, there's some folks that are a little bit more at risk, maybe. A lot of times we see this after somebody passes away. Somebody pretends to be the person who passed away, and they can get a fake ID and present that to a notary, and the notary really doesn't know any better. Sometimes we'll see situations where people where people own their properties free and clear, so they don't have a mortgage. This makes it easier to engage in this type of behavior because there's one less step in the process of selling the property. There's no payoff, there's no call to the lender. Yeah. And so people in those situations, sometimes it's just absentee owners. Maybe it's an investment home, maybe it's a second home, and they're just not there that much. And so somebody sees this as an opportunity to either move into the property or convey it to somebody else. But it's been around a long time. It's just getting a little bit more sophisticated now. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of something that's on people's minds. There's infomercials out there about it now. There's all sorts of stuff, but it's been around a while.
So first of all, it just breaks my heart. I mean, people, this is many times their biggest investment of their lives. And to see this type of just fraudulent activity is just disgusting, frankly. It just really makes me upset. And I'm sure you see it. I know that you've actually been involved in these cases. One thing I do want to share is that when a property has a mortgage on it, there is a process, and this is why the title insurance is so important. And so, a title insurance company, let's say that person that did the deed fraud, let's say that they're not going to sell the property, which in most cases, what they're going to do is sell it because it's the easiest way to get the access, right? But if they think that they're going to retain it and do a cash out refinance, title insurance comes in, and then that quitclaim deed or whatever it was that transpired, if that deed transfer was not insured, it is much, much, much more difficult to have title insurance on the refinance. So that's one thing just to kind of know. The second thing though is really, I think that, what can we do to safeguard ourselves? I mean, you're at risk, I'm at risk, everybody's at risk. So what do we do, Patrick? What do we do today? Come on now, we got to come up with something.
Yeah, I mean, there's some telltale sign. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a magic, this will stop it every time kind of bullet. There are some telltale signs that something is weird going on. You know, you get some unexpected bills, you get some mail that's sent to you in somebody else's name, you get some weird suspicious phishing emails, receiving mortgage statements that you have no clue what they're about. I've seen situations where someone just shows up on your doorstep and says, hey, you're still here, I'm moving in. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, so those are some things that you can do. You know, if you suspect that that's happening, you should immediately contact the police. You should immediately contact your local FBI. You should contact your title insurance company to see if they can provide some help for you. You should contact the realtors that you think may have been involved in this. You should contact the county recorder's office to see what documents were recorded.
So on that note, I want to make sure that everybody understands, and we'll include it as a link, but any of us can go to the Maricopa County Recorder's Office and we can all check the deed history on property. So we can see if there's an instrument or something that's been recorded that maybe wasn't us. And it's free, right? So it's just one of those things that if you start to be concerned, or, you know, you have a parent or relative that's passed away and you want to start to, you know, pay attention to what's going on, I think just, unfortunately, it's probably an after the fact type of thing, right? So I don't know that it's a proactive type of solution to the problem. What about if the property's in a trust? Does it make it more difficult? Or if a homestead is in place, does that make it more difficult from a legal standpoint?
I think so. I think it may dissuade some of these swindlers from engaging in some of this behavior, because it just creates a little bit of uncertainty. Like, oh, what do I need to do to pretend that I'm the trustee of this trust? What do I need to do to pretend that I'm the member of this LLC? Oh, you know. And so what we've recommended in the past, and it's not foolproof. I'm not going to tell you how to, you know, get around this, but we think it may prevent some of these things from happening. Is we'll record a document that just says Memorandum of Ownership or something to that effect, where it outlines the steps that a title company needs to take to verify the identification of that owner. And so, you know, it's helped in some instances. The vigilance that you've recommended in terms of reviewing the recorder's office, I've seen other people, they'll review Zillow. And so Zillow somehow pulls all of the listings, and people have realized, oh my gosh, my property is now for sale. It's pulled on this listing site. I better do something to stop this. I need to record that document that Patrick was talking about. I need to figure out who's trying to sell my property. And so there's some extra vigilance that you can take. Like I said, some people will record a document if they're really concerned, if they're really kind of an absentee person and they've got their home paid off. They'll put it in the name of the trust, because it adds an extra layer of perhaps investigation by title companies, by lenders, etc. Sometimes they'll put it in the name of an LLC. So there's a couple of little things that you can do. Again, they're not foolproof. I'm not going to tell you how they're not foolproof, but it's an extra step, and it kind of dissuades people. You know, there's those monitoring companies as well. And so frequently we get asked, hey, you know, this is a $15, you know, situation, $15 a month. They'll monitor it for me. That's great. You can save the $15 by monitoring it yourself if you just know how to go to the Maricopa County or whatever county you're in to their site. And the biggest concern is that these companies that do this monitoring, they're great. They'll tell you if something hits, right? If something's strange or something is amiss. But the big risk is they don't really do anything after that, you know, and so you've got to go and take these proactive steps after that to do something about it. The real concern is that somebody gets away with this, and now you're left with having to hire me, having to hire a real estate attorney, and spending a whole lot of money to clear title to your property. And you've got to prove to the court that you're the owner, that you've never heard of this grantee, that you know, and that's not easy. That's very expensive. And so ultimately, you know, the risk of you losing your home at, you know, and if this thing played itself out, is probably pretty low if you've been proactive, but you will have spent a lot of money to clean that up. And these monitoring sites, they don't pay your attorney's fees. I've not found one that pays the attorney's fees or actually does anything proactive in terms of once something is detected, and maybe they'll give you some tips or whatever. But you know, to me, it's, if you want to record a document, okay, again, it's not foolproof, but it may help. But the real risk is having to spend a boatload of money to clear title to the property that you already owned.
All right, so that's not what I was looking for, Patrick. I was hoping that you were going to have the magic solution here, but I get it. So what I'm hearing you say is that just be aware. First of all, be aware that this is happening. I think awareness already helps everybody kind of just, all right. And if you are associated with a family member or yourself that has a free and clear property, consider putting that property into an LLC or a trust, because it makes it a little more difficult and might dissuade the bad guys. And then finally, I guess you're talking about just a general memorandum that anybody can file as a deed on their or as a recording against their title. Walk me through that. Is it just like I just go into Word and I just write certain things, or?
Yeah, it's usually that easy, and it's what we've seen in the past, or what we've done in the past, is just, you know, some sort of memorandum of ownership that says,
Okay.
you know, in a further effort to avoid any sort of fraud or fraudulent activity, I, as the grantor, you know, am willing to produce these types of identifications, and the title company should look into these types of things if and when I'm ready to sell. And so it may dissuade people that are going, oh gosh, you know, now the title company is going to look into this a little further. Now people are on notice that, you know, this could happen. I'm just going to move on to the next property down the road. And so, yeah, there's no real magic to the title of the document. I mean, I've called it Memorandum of Ownership. I've called it Memorandum of Concern over Title Fraud. I mean, you could call it whatever you want. And you go down to your county recorder's office and sign it. You have it notarized, and you put in there the things that you want a title company to look into to verify your identification, and maybe they're specific to you. I've heard of other things where people have required fingerprints. Get my fingerprints. I'll show you the fingerprints that I have on file. These are my fingerprints. Yeah, and in some states that's now starting to be a requirement, because unfortunately, you know, the county recorder, that's not their job to verify identities. Their job is to process and record these documents and get some sort of order to them so that people can find these documents. You know, people hope that, oh, the government, in terms of the county recorder's office, should be the one who's checking on this. And no, they don't. It's never traditionally been done that way. And so the way you protect yourself is to record this document, perhaps say, hey, take a fingerprint sample to verify it's me, and you can match these up. I mean, that's a little extreme, but that's what some people are doing. Because again, you know, even a notary who's, you know, to have a recorded document here in Maricopa County and in most states, and throughout Arizona certainly, but in most states as well, you've got to have a notary review your signature, or, you know, attest that they saw you sign this document, and they put their notary stamp on it, and the document gets recorded. But what if that notary is either in on it? Sometimes that happens, or more likely, that person who is signing the document has a fake ID that says they're you, and the notary doesn't know you, and so they just go and say, yeah, I saw so and so sign this. And so there's really nothing you can do about it. If you take it a step further and say, well, you know, in these situations, I'm going to require that you look and see what my fingerprints look like, you verify these other certain parameters. Yeah, I think the likelihood of somebody wanting to mess with that property is much more diminished.
My goodness. All right, so let's think it through. The bad guy gets the property, or they have transferred title or ownership to themselves. Now, the bad guy or gal, I guess, is I want to be, you know, yes, anyway. So now, you know, they're going to probably take that to market. And when they take it to market, they're going to want to sell it, because that's how they get the cash, right? So when they take it to market, they're probably looking for a cash buyer, because again, if the buyer's utilizing financing, then there's a whole bunch of additional hoops. There's more scrutiny. Title insurance is involved. Title insurance companies are going to get down and drill down into this deed transfer, if it was legit or not. Simply, it wasn't insured, so that could be problematic. So really, I think just knowing even if it's a small mortgage or a home equity line of credit or something like that, that is going to ensure some type of title insurance, and that might be helpful as opposed to, you know, just paying cash. And maybe if you are paying cash, again, maybe closing in a trust or an LLC or something like that, that could give you just that extra layer of security for your home. So it's just crazy to me that this happens. And I know it's nothing new. It's been around for a long time, but again, seems to be resurfacing. And so I really appreciate you, Patrick, coming on today and just sharing your thoughts and giving us something to think about on what we can do to protect ourselves.
Yeah, more to worry about, right? Just what we all need.
I know. Hey, is there anything else? 'Cause now that I have you, is there anything else going on in real estate and on a state level, on a statute level that we need to kind of know about? I know when we spoke last time, there were some changes with HOAs and short-term rentals. Any update on that?
No real updates, but we've had so many calls about the Callaway decision, KALWAY. People just want to understand what their rights are, what they can do next. So to the extent you haven't reviewed that decision yet, or anybody needs it, I'm happy to provide a copy of it. It's a game changer in terms of HOAs and short-term rentals. The case didn't even address short-term rentals. It wasn't about short-term rentals at all. It was about the HOA's authority to do certain things. And so people are saying, look, hey, I'm now going to do X, Y, and Z that was previously prohibited by my HOA. And so it's been a pretty interesting case that came out 4 or 5 months ago and changed the rules a lot. We also had a new statute, I think it's Senate Bill 1168 that came out a few months ago, that addresses short-term rentals and gives greater authority to local municipalities. So previously, since 2016, the local authorities, City of Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, the municipalities that are the main ones here in Maricopa County, they're really hamstrung by the short-term rental laws. Governor Ducey signed something in 2016, as I mentioned, that really hamstrung them. They weren't allowed to do much. Well, now Governor Ducey just signed Senate Bill 1168, which gives a little bit more authority, a little bit more ability to police their towns and cities for short-term rentals. They can enact licensing requirements, they can have more fines, and so people feel that that's struck a little bit better balance than where we were at. So it kind of remains to be seen what each of the towns and cities are going to do. But they now have a little bit more of an ability to do that. So that'll change things a little bit. We also are now getting a lot of questions, and maybe we do a separate webinar or something on this one about the Super Bowl coming and how to protect yourself from, unruly short-term rental guests there. One of the big things is, okay, let's say somebody's partying at my house. I've rented it out for $7,000 a week or more. Let's say that I now get in trouble because they partied too hard. Can I ask them to indemnify me as the owner? Can I ask for the credit card and keep it for 30 days? Just so there's this sort of waiting period of me getting nailed with a fine or a penalty. The answer is usually yes, you can do that. But there are some certain things you need to know. You need to disclose that you're going to do that and those types of things. But so those are
okay.
Really
that's good. Stop there. We're going to do another update on that. That's
there you go.
I love it.
It's a teaser. It's a teaser. Yeah.
Yeah,
there you
it's
go.
a teaser. More to come. I appreciate you so much. If you can just get us the link to that Callaway case, we'll be sure to include it. And if anybody has additional questions, I know that you're always there as a resource and certainly for hire. And so we'll be sure to include your information as well. Thank you, Patrick Macqueen, for hopping on today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You bet.